January 8, 1966. Cu Chi District, South Vietnam. Engineers from the United States 25th Infantry Division uncovered an unexpected statistic. Beneath a 250 square kilometer region lay an estimated 250 kilometers of tunnels, 1 kilometer of tunnel for every square kilometer of land. American command had assumed the Viet Cong lacked the manpower or technology for such works. Yet aerial bombardments exceeding 14 million tons of ordnance nationwide failed to erase them. Inside these cramped passages, fighters slept, forged weapons, and planned assaults only meters below United States fire bases. Reports described an underground city sustaining full battalions without visible supply lines. The question now faced by both sides was not tactical, but structural. How could a rural insurgency construct a system so extensive that even B-52 strikes could not fully destroy it? From this moment began the investigation that would reveal a subterranean strategy reshaping the war around Saigon. French Colonial Intelligence Map, 1948, a hand-drawn reconnaissance chart showing 48 kilometers of suspected Viet Minh tunnel networks, the first official acknowledgement of subterranean warfare in Indochina. Ben Cat and Cu Chi districts, Cochinchina, 1948. A French intelligence map lay spread across a wooden table in a command hut of Groupement Mobile 100. Red pencil marks indicated dozens of small burrows near rice paddies. These were not storm shelters or irrigation channels. They were fighting positions. French colonial reports from 1950 estimated 48 kilometers of rudimentary tunnels in the Ben Cat and Cu Chi area. Excavation required only hand tools, shovels, woven baskets, and human labor. Engineers calculated roughly 3 man-hours per meter of tunnel. The soil itself offered unexpected advantages. Laterite clay, common throughout the region, hardened upon exposure to air, providing natural structural support for low-technology shafts. No timber frames were necessary, no concrete reinforcement, only clay and time. By 1954, civilian population density in the district exceeded 500 people per square kilometer. This concentration offered both concealment and labor. Villages appeared peaceful by day. By night, excavation continued. French sources recorded repeated ambushes launched from positions that seemed to materialize from nowhere. Patrols found empty fields. Hours later, automatic weapons fire erupted from the same ground. Investigation revealed tunnel exits camouflaged beneath vegetation and debris. The French army possessed superior firepower. Its trench mortars and flamethrowers, however, proved ineffective beyond a depth of 2 meters. Mapping resources were insufficient. Doctrine assumed insurgents would fight above ground, in jungles or villages. The expectation, colonial forces would suppress resistance through mobility and firepower. The reality, the enemy fought from beneath. On May 7, 1954, French forces surrendered at Dien Bien Phu. The defeat forced withdrawal from Indochina. Yet beneath Cu Chi, largely unnoticed by Western strategists, lay the framework of a future war. The tunnel network existing in 1954 was small, rudimentary and localized, but the foundation had been laid, the principle established. When firepower dominated the surface, survival lay underground. A French intelligence officer noted in a 1953 report, "They vanish like water into sand. We control the roads by day, they control the earth by night." The prediction proved prophetic. The tunnels were not merely shelters. They were a philosophy of warfare, one that would outlast the colonial power that first documented them. ARVN G2 document, 4561, 1961, captured Viet Cong design sketches detailing the first 3-tiered tunnel system, marking the transition from simple shelters to engineered military infrastructure. South Vietnam, Cu Chi Sector, 1959. In a village meeting hall, cadres of the newly formed National Liberation Front re-entered the South following the 1954 Geneva Accords. The Accords had partitioned Vietnam. They had not eliminated the tunnels. United States Military Assistance Advisory Group reports from 1962 referenced multi-level tunnel structures capable of sheltering 40 to 60 men each. Local population surveys indicated nearly 1 in 10 residents contributed labor to tunnel digging and maintenance. This was not forced conscription, it was survival. The South Vietnamese government's strategic hamlet resettlement program displaced villagers, inadvertently driving more men underground. The first air vents disguised as termite mounds appeared in 1961. Captured design sketches, archived as ARVN G2 document 4561, delineated a three-tier system unprecedented in insurgent warfare. Level 1, at 3 meters depth, served communication and storage. Level 2, at 6 meters, housed living quarters. Level 3, at approximately 10 meters, contained command posts and medical units. Each level connected via narrow vertical shafts, easily collapsed to seal off sections during attack. Each meter of excavated tunnel produced roughly 5 kilograms of removed soil. Disposal became an engineering challenge equal to excavation itself. Soil was hidden in farm fields, dispersed along riverbanks, or disguised as bomb craters from earlier conflicts. Nothing could be visible from the air. American reconnaissance aircraft flew daily. Any disturbed earth invited bombardment. Technical specifications emerged from captured documents. Tunnel cross-sections measured 0.8 meters wide by 1.2 meters high, dimensions calculated to allow human passage while minimizing excavation. Volume. Clay walls hardened naturally. Floors remained unfinished. Drainage channels carved into the clay directed groundwater away from living areas. Ventilation shafts, no wider than 5 to 6 centimeters, extended to the surface at intervals of 15 to 20 meters. These shafts were too narrow for grenades, too small for detection equipment. By 1963, United States advisors believed the network was local and limited. Intelligence estimates suggested perhaps 20 kilometers of tunnels existed in the Cu Chi area. The reality differed substantially. The network stretched toward Tainan province, forming a strategic western anchor for approaches to Saigon. It connected villages that appeared isolated on maps. It linked supply routes that did not exist on paper. The tunnel system had become an invisible infrastructure, a subterranean nation parallel to the surface world. A United States Army report from 1963 noted, "Population appears cooperative. No significant Viet Cong infrastructure detected." The assessment was accurate regarding visible structures. Below ground, battalions trained, weapons were manufactured, and strategies were planned. The contrast between expectation and reality had never been greater. The Americans believed they controlled the countryside. The Viet Cong controlled the dimension beneath it. After Action Report No. 24, MAQV 1966, the first comprehensive United States military assessment of the Cu Chi tunnel network, documenting 600 entrances and revealing the inadequacy of conventional countermeasures. Cu Chi District, December 1965. A company-level briefing at the 25th Infantry Division's forward base displayed aerial reconnaissance photographs. Unusual heat signatures appeared near forest clearings. Intelligence officers suggested storage depots or concealed encampments. The photographs revealed nothing definitive. Shadows, vegetation, rice paddies. The enemy remained invisible. Operation Crimp commenced January 8th through 14th, 1966. 8,000 troops, United States and Army of the Republic of Vietnam, entered the region. The mission objective, locate and destroy Viet Cong base areas. Engineers anticipated bunkers, perhaps shallow trenches. What they discovered defied doctrinal expectations. The first tunnel entrance appeared beneath a camouflage trapdoor near a bomb crater. Dimensions matched no known standard. A soldier lowered himself into darkness. His flashlight revealed a passage extending horizontally beyond the beam's reach. Other entrances followed, dozens, then hundreds. After Action, Report No. 24 documented 600 tunnel entrances within a 70 square kilometer zone. Only approximately 20 kilometers of passages were fully explored and cleared during the operation. Engineers found workshops producing 7.62mm cartridges from captured. Casings, booby traps constructed from United States grenade pins lined passages at irregular intervals. Medical facilities contained surgical instruments fashioned from scavenged metal. Sleeping chambers held woven mats and ceramic water jars. The tunnels were not temporary shelters. They were permanent installations. Mapping revealed ventilation shafts at regular 15 to 20 meter intervals, a design feature indicating planned engineering, not improvisation. Air quality tests showed carbon dioxide concentrations of 2.5 to 3%, near the upper limit of human tolerance. Yet fighters lived and worked in these conditions for weeks at a time. The discovery forced doctrinal reassessment. United States planners had expected guerrillas to flee into jungles when confronted with superior firepower. The Viet Cong did not flee. They vanished below American boots. Soldiers stood on ground honeycombed with enemy positions. Patrols walked over command posts. Tanks rolled across sleeping quarters. The surface revealed nothing. The war had acquired a dimension for which conventional tactics offered no solution. A 25th Infantry Division intelligence summary from January 1966 stated, "Enemy demonstrates capacity for prolonged subterranean operations. Standard ordnance ineffective. Recommend specialized clearance procedures." The Americans had encountered the tip of the tunnel network. They did not yet grasp its total scope. The tunnels extended far beyond the Operation Crimp area. They connected districts, they linked provinces, and they continued to expand meter by meter beneath a war fought above ground. The contrast was absolute. Americans arrived with helicopters, artillery, and air superiority. The Viet Cong possessed shovels, baskets, and time. The expectation, technology would dominate. The reality, geology favored the defenders. The war had not changed, the battlefield had. United States Engineer Research Note ERD 6617, 1966. Technical analysis of captured Viet Cong tunnel construction manuals, revealing engineering sophistication that contradicted assumptions of primitive insurgent capabilities. Kyu Chi region, mid-1966. On a table in a MSAV intelligence cell sat a captured Viet Cong training manual. Its pages, handwritten in Vietnamese, detailed construction techniques refined through 2 decades of subterranean warfare. Translation required 3 weeks. The contents required doctrinal revision. The manual described tunnel cross-sections of 0.8 meters wide by 1.2 meters high, dimensions permitting human passage while minimizing excavation volume. Trapdoors, sealed with clay and resin, became invisible beneath layers of dirt and vegetation. Interlevel connectors descended at 60-degree angles, creating natural choke points against intruders. Chamber spacing followed mathematical ratios, calculated to balance air circulation against structural integrity. Engineer Research Note ERD 66. 17 analyzed these specifications in October 1966. A 10-kilometer tunnel stretch required approximately 40,000 man-hours of labor, equivalent to 200 men working full-time for 8 weeks. Yet the network expanded continuously. Villages contributed labor in rotating shifts. Women, children, and elderly residents participated in excavation, transport, and camouflage operations. The tunnels became a communal project transcending military organization. Ventilation proved the most sophisticated element. Bamboo shafts, 5 to 6 centimeters in diameter, extended from tunnels to surface, terminating inside termite mounds, beneath bushes or within hollow trees. Shaft placement followed wind patterns documented through months of observation. Natural airflow drew fresh air into tunnels while expelling stale air through secondary vents. United States chemical detection teams recorded carbon dioxide levels of 2.5 to 3% inside operational sections, concentrations that would incapacitate most people within hours. Viet Cong fighters endured these conditions indefinitely. Structural resilience derived from geology. Laterite soil, formed from weathered rock under tropical conditions, absorbed blast pressure up to 300 pounds per square inch. The clay's plastic deformation dispersed shock waves rather than fracturing. An engineer field report from February 1967 concluded, "No existing United States ordnance short of a 500-pound bomb with direct impact can guarantee collapse beyond 20 feet of depth. Standard artillery shells, mortar rounds, and even 500-pound bombs detonating on the surface created craters but rarely penetrated to functional tunnel levels. The expectation had been that sophisticated United States firepower would dominate any battlefield. The reality was that geology and manual engineering neutralized technological advantages. A single B-52 strike could crater a square kilometer of surface terrain. Tunnels 3 meters below that surface remained operational. Repairs commenced within hours. Labor teams worked in 2-hour rotations to avoid carbon dioxide poisoning. By the time American forces returned to assess damage, fresh camouflage concealed new entrances. The tunnels healed themselves faster than air power could wound them. What began as farmers' hiding holes had evolved into hardened underground complexes matching the structural resilience of concrete bunkers. The transformation occurred without industrial machinery, steel reinforcement, or formal engineering education. Only laterite clay, bamboo, human labor, and accumulated knowledge passed from generation to generation. Against this combination, technology alone offered no solution. Captured diary of VC Unit C-22, document A-141, 1966. Personal account, documenting rations, medical conditions, and psychological endurance, providing rare insight into subterranean existence. Kyu Chi Sector. Late 1966. Captured diaries from Viet Cong Unit C-22, archived as document A141, listed daily rations: 400 grams of rice, 1.5 litres of water per person. These quantities represented survival minimums. Meals cooked pre-dawn using S-shaped chimneys approximately 20 metres long. The design cooled smoke before it reached the surface, dissipating heat signatures that might attract aerial reconnaissance. Field hospitals occupied the deepest tunnel levels. An average facility contained 20 beds, woven bamboo frames with thin cotton padding. Medical supplies arrived via night convoys from distant villages. United States Medical Service report from 1967 noted, "Patients treated by candlelight. Chloroquine rationed at 50 milligrams per day." Captured medical logs indicated malaria accounted for 60% of cases, followed by shrapnel injuries, dysentery, and infected wounds. Surgical instruments included scavenged scalpels, forceps fashioned from bicycle spokes, and sutures made from sterilized plant fibers. Anesthesia rarely existed. Operations proceeded with patients biting cloth to muffle screams. Recovery occurred in darkness, in air thick with carbon dioxide, beneath constant vibration from bombs exploding overhead. Yet survival rates, documented in captured unit records, exceeded 70% for injuries not immediately fatal. Resourcefulness compensated for absent technology. Psychological endurance proved as critical as physical survival. Fighters spent weeks underground without seeing sunlight. Darkness, humidity, and confined spaces induced claustrophobia, depression, and paranoia. Unit desertion rates, however, remained below 1%, a statistic that confounded American intelligence analysts. Captured correspondence revealed the reasons. Letters spoke of family villages destroyed, homes burned, relatives killed. The tunnels offered not merely survival, but purpose. Above ground meant death. Below ground meant resistance. Infestations plagued every tunnel section. Ants, centipedes, and scorpions inhabited the clay walls. Snakes, including venomous bamboo vipers and cobras, entered through ventilation shafts seeking warmth and prey. Rats thrived on food stores and human waste. Disease vectors multiplied in standing water that accumulated despite drainage efforts. An American medical officer who examined captured tunnel sections in 1967 reported, "Conditions incompatible with sustained human habitation by Western standards." Yet evidence indicates continuous occupation for months or years. The contrast between expectation and reality remained absolute. American strategists believed guerrillas would crumble under sustained pressure. The tunnels were pressure incarnate, bombs from above, carbon dioxide below, disease within, starvation always, near. Yet the system expanded. While United States airstrikes rained from above, hundreds of Vietnamese fighters lived, survived, and dug deeper each night. The tunnels were not merely defensive positions, they were statements of will. Every meter excavated declared, "We will outlast your bombs." Every meal cooked underground announced, "We endure what you cannot imagine." The Americans possessed helicopters, artillery, and industrial might. The Viet Cong possessed shovels and the determination to use them until victory or death. In the mathematics of war, determination proved the more durable resource. VC Supply Memo No. 1266, 1966, internal logistics document describing the one box per night strategy that sustained tunnel operations through incremental supply accumulation. Saigon outskirts, 1967. A night convoy departed a village 15 to 30 kilometers from the tunnel network. Ox carts and bicycles carried supplies toward Cu Chi. Movement occurred exclusively after dark to evade aerial detection. Cargo included rice, salt, medical supplies, ammunition, and raw materials for weapons manufacture. Each bicycle bore loads exceeding 100 kilograms. Each ox cart transported twice that weight. Progress measured 1 to 2 kilometers per hour along paths invisible on military maps. Viet Cong supply policy prioritized consistency over volume. An intercepted memo, number 1266, reported, "We move one box each night. By month's end, an arsenal appears." This incremental approach rendered individual convoys insignificant. American patrols occasionally intercepted supply movements, but dismissed them as local trade. Intelligence failed to aggregate these small movements into understanding of cumulative supply capacity. Weapons arrived via the Ho Chi Minh Trail from North Vietnam. Type 56 rifles, SKS carbines, and 60mm mortars traveled southward through Laos and Cambodia. MACV quartermaster data recorded approximately 3,000 firearms cached in the Cu Chi network prior to the Tet offensive. Additional weapons came from captured American stocks. Every ambush, every overrun outpost contributed rifles, grenades, ammunition, and equipment to tunnel arsenals. The contrast with American logistics illuminated the asymmetry of the conflict. The United States 25th Infantry Division consumed roughly 500 tons of supplies per day. This included ammunition, food, fuel, construction materials, medical supplies, and personal equipment for 12,000 soldiers. Supply convoys operated continuously. Helicopters delivered to forward bases. Transport aircraft landed at major installations. The logistics apparatus consumed vast resources merely to sustain itself. The tunnel network operated on kilograms, while the American military operated on tons. Viet Cong fighters consumed 400 grams of rice daily, less than 1 pound. American soldiers received 3 meals, totaling over 2 kilograms of food per day, plus snacks, coffee, and supplemental rations. A single American infantry company required more daily supply tonnage than an entire Viet Cong battalion underground. Yet the Americans could not translate this abundance into decisive advantage. Mobility outpaced mass. Concealment neutralized firepower. The tunnels demonstrated that quantity favored those who controlled logistics, but continuity favored those who needed less. Weapons manufacture occurred within the tunnels themselves. Workshops produced 7.62mm cartridges by disassembling captured ammunition, recovering brass casings, and reloading them with salvaged gunpowder. Booby traps utilized American grenade pins, artillery shell fragments, and punji stakes hardened in cooking fires. One captured workshop contained tools fashioned from scrap metal, a foot-powered drill, and dies for casting rifle parts. Production rates remained low, perhaps 20 cartridges per day per workshop. Multiplied across dozens of workshops throughout the network, output sufficed to sustain operations. The expectation had been that large conventional forces would outsustain guerrillas through superior logistics. The reality was that guerrillas required fewer supplies to begin with. Americans hauled tons and remained vulnerable. Viet Cong moved kilograms and remained invisible. In subterranean warfare, the army that needed less possessed the advantage. The tunnels proved that industrial abundance could not compensate for logistical vulnerability. Every convoy, every helicopter, every supply depot became a target. The tunnels needed only night, bicycles, and discipline. Against this minimalism, American logistics dominance offered no solution. 1st Infantry Division After Action Summary. Operation Cedar Falls, January 1967. Official report documenting 16,000 tunnel sections destroyed, yet acknowledging incomplete mapping and 11% casualty rates among clearance teams. Operation Cedar Falls, January 1967. 30,000 United States and ARVN troops entered the Iron Triangle, a Viet Cong stronghold north of Saigon. The operation represented the largest tunnel clearance effort to date. Intelligence estimated extensive tunnel networks required specialized response. That response became the Tunnel Rats. Tunnel Rat teams consisted of volunteers, soldiers small enough to navigate passages 0.8 meters wide by 1.2 meters high. Standard equipment included a .45 caliber pistol, flashlight, knife, and communications wire. No grenades, no rifles. In confined spaces, any explosion risked collapse or suffocation. Clearance proceeded meter by meter, pistol forward, flashlight beam, probing darkness ahead. The 1st Infantry Division After Action Summary documented 16,000 tunnel sections destroyed during Operation Cedar Falls. Engineers used explosives to collapse passages, pumped acetylene gas into ventilation shafts, and bulldozed suspected entrance areas. Yet mapping remained incomplete. Casualty rates among tunnel clearance teams reached 11%, extraordinarily high for specialized units operating behind secured perimeters. Hazards multiplied underground. Carbon dioxide buildup caused disorientation, headaches, and unconsciousness within minutes in poorly ventilated sections. Booby traps included punji stakes coated with feces, grenades rigged to tripwires and spring-loaded spikes. Venomous snakes, bamboo vipers, and cobras inhabited tunnels, attracted by warmth and small prey. Several tunnel rats died from snakebite before anti-venom protocols were established. Combat underground differed fundamentally from surface warfare. In tunnel passages, superior firepower offered no advantage. Both sides possessed pistols. Both operated in darkness. Viet Cong defenders knew the tunnel layout. They moved silently through familiar passages. They waited at corners behind trapdoors inside concealed chambers. American tunnel rats advanced into unknown territory, vulnerable at every turn. One tunnel rat, Sergeant Robert Bear, described the experience in a 1968 interview. You go in alone. Your flashlight makes you a target. You can't see more than 5 feet. You know someone might be 10 feet ahead, waiting. Every breath sounds loud. Every footstep echoes. You move 1 foot at a time, and you pray the next meter doesn't contain a trap or a fighter or a snake or a collapsed section that buries you alive. Despite casualties and psychological trauma, tunnel rat teams achieved tactical successes. They cleared enemy-held sections, recovered documents revealing organizational structures, and destroyed supply caches. Intelligence gathered from tunnel clearance operations contributed to understanding Viet Cong logistics, command hierarchies, and operational planning. Yet for every tunnel section destroyed, others remained operational. The network proved self-healing. The expectation had been that overwhelming force would neutralize the tunnels permanently. The reality was that destruction preceded reconstruction. Labor teams repaired collapsed sections within hours. New entrances appeared where old ones had been destroyed. Camouflage concealed fresh excavations. American forces declared areas cleared, withdrew, and within weeks intercepted radio traffic from those same areas. The tunnels regenerated faster than operations could eliminate them. Operation Cedar Falls concluded January 26, 1967. Official reports claimed significant Viet Cong infrastructure destroyed. Intelligence assessments proved more pessimistic. Captured documents indicated Cu Chi units remained operational throughout the campaign. They had hidden deeper, sealed off sections, and emerged after American forces withdrew. The tunnels demonstrated a fundamental principle. In subterranean warfare, defenders who could dig possessed permanent advantage over attackers who could only destroy. Technology favored the industrial power. Patience and labor favored the underground, and the war beneath continued, unresolved and unfinished. ARVN SIGINT file 6712, late 1967, intercepted radio traffic documenting supply stockpiling and troop movements, the first indicators of the impending Tet offensive that intelligence analysts failed to synthesize into strategic warning. Cu Chi District, late 1967, intercepted radio traffic, archived as ARVN SIGINT file 6712, recorded increased underground movements. Messages referenced supplies, troop rotations, and timing coordination. Intelligence analysts noted the traffic, but assessed it as routine logistics. The pattern suggested preparation, but for what remained unclear. The answer would arrive with devastating surprise. Captured logbooks documented stockpiles. 400 tons of rice, 120,000 rounds of ammunition, medical stores sufficient for 3 months of sustained operations underground. These quantities exceeded defensive needs. They indicated offensive planning on a scale previously unattempted from tunnel complexes. Storage occurred in the deepest tunnel levels, 10 meters below surface, beyond reach of conventional ordnance. Tactical rehearsals commenced in December 1967. Captured after-action reports indicated units practiced rapid egress from tunnels, assembly on surface, and coordinated assaults on multiple objectives. Timing drills emphasized synchronization across dispersed units. Communications protocols shifted to courier-based systems to avoid radio interception. Security tightened. Villages received instructions to stockpile food and conceal activities. The tunnel network transformed from defensive infrastructure to offensive launchpad. American intelligence detected anomalies but failed to predict their meaning. Increased tunnel construction, greater supply movements, and radio traffic surges appeared in reports. Yet the conclusion remained: Viet Cong forces prepared for defensive operations against anticipated United States offensives. The possibility of large-scale coordinated attacks from tunnel positions never entered strategic assessments. Doctrine held that guerrilla forces avoided concentration. Mass exposure invited mass destruction. The tunnels, however, permitted concentration without exposure. Battalions assembled underground, invisible to reconnaissance aircraft, immune to preparatory bombardment. January 30th, 1968. The Tet offensive commenced. At least 5 battalions of the 9th Division emerged from Cu Chi tunnels to strike Saigon. Assault groups moved through pre-positioned tunnel exits, achieving surprise against positions the Americans believed secured. Embassy compounds, military installations, and administrative centers came under attack simultaneously. The offensive demonstrated that tunnels were not merely defensive structures. They were strategic assets enabling offensive operations against a numerically and technologically superior enemy. United States casualty reports counted 110 killed during the initial Tet assaults near Saigon. Viet Cong losses reached 421. The tactical outcome favored American forces. yet key units withdrew underground intact, disappearing into tunnels before encirclement. The network had served its purpose. It delivered surprise. It enabled concentration. It provided escape routes. The Tet offensive failed strategically, but succeeded in demonstrating that tunnels transformed guerrilla warfare into something approaching conventional operations, then dissolved back into guerrilla tactics when conventional response arrived. The expectation had been that Saigon, protected by overwhelming force and defensive perimeters, remained safe. The reality was that the tunnels allowed penetration of those perimeters from below. Fighters emerged inside defended zones, struck objectives, and retreated underground before counterattack. The surface war and subterranean war had merged. Every defended position now faced threats from two dimensions. And the tunnels continued serving their function. They preserved forces, enabled operations, and outlasted destruction. A MASV intelligence summary from February 1968 concluded, enemy demonstrated capacity for large-scale coordinated offensive utilizing tunnel networks as assembly areas and egress routes. Previous assessments of tunnel systems as purely defensive infrastructure require revision. The revision came too late. The tunnels had already proven their offensive potential. The underground war had erupted onto the surface, shocked the American military establishment, and returned below ground, leaving analysts to reassess assumptions that should never have been made. Operation Arclight reconnaissance photographs, June 1969, aerial imagery showing crater-marked terrain with active smoke vents still visible, documenting the tunnel network's resistance to strategic bombing. Chi District, 1969. B-52 Stratofortress bombers flew overhead, afterburners glowing in pre-dawn darkness. Operation Arclight missions delivered over 4,000 tons of ordnance onto target grids, 15 square kilometers wide. Each bomber carried 70,000 pounds of explosives. Formations struck in waves. The earth convulsed. Craters measured up to 10 meters deep and 20 meters across. The landscape transformed into a moonscape of overlapping detonations. Reconnaissance photographs from June 1969 revealed unexpected results. Despite saturation bombing, active smoke vents persisted above tunnel systems. Heat signatures indicated cooking fires. Radio intercepts confirmed continued operations. The tunnels had withstood the most intensive aerial bombardment in military history. Geology and engineering had defeated strategic air power. Captured Viet Cong engineer Nguyen Van Num testified, during interrogation, that repairs began within hours after each bombing. Labor rotations ran in 2-hour shifts to avoid carbon dioxide poisoning from collapsed ventilation. Teams cleared debris, reinforced weakened sections, and re-established circulation systems. The laterite clay's plasticity absorbed blast energy. Deep tunnel levels, 10 meters below surface, experienced minimal structural damage even from direct hits on the surface above them. The bombing campaigns created unintended consequences. Every crater became fresh camouflage for tunnel entrances. Debris piles concealed ventilation shafts. The cratered terrain hindered ground patrols while providing cover for supply movements. What was intended to destroy infrastructure instead created defensive terrain favoring the defenders. Viet Cong units used bomb craters as fighting positions, storage sites, and concealment for surface activities. Tonnage statistics revealed the asymmetry. By 1969, United States forces had delivered over 14 million tons of ordnance throughout Vietnam, more than all belligerents combined during World War II. Yet the Chi tunnel network remained operational. Sections collapsed. Others expanded. For every kilometer destroyed, another kilometer opened. The network healed itself through labor faster than air power could wound it through explosives. Captured documents indicated repair doctrine, immediate assessment following strikes, priority given to ventilation restoration, structural reinforcement within 48 hours, and camouflage renewal within 72 hours. This systematic approach transformed destruction into temporary inconvenience. American commanders expected cumulative damage to render tunnels uninhabitable. Reality demonstrated that repair capacity exceeded destruction rate. A United States Air Force assessment from December 1969 concluded, strategic bombing proves insufficient to neutralize subterranean infrastructure. Recommend re-evaluation of targeting priorities. The recommendation acknowledged what tunnel occupants had known since 1948. Geology favored the underground. Industrial air power, for all its sophistication and tonnage, could not collapse clay that absorbed blast pressure through plastic deformation. Technology dominated the surface. Physics protected the subsurface. And every bomb hole became fresh camouflage for further digging. Evidence that the war beneath would outlast the war above. Declassified report ESC 7104 1971, Engineer Studies Center analysis conclusively demonstrating that tunnel collapse probability decreased by 70% beyond 6 meters depth, and that no mechanical device could trace bamboo ventilation shafts through vegetated terrain. Engineer Studies Center, Saigon, 1971, tables covered, with soil compression test results filled a conference room. The declassified report ESC 7104 represented 2 years of analysis, examining why tunnels withstood destruction. The conclusions challenged fundamental assumptions about firepower superiority. Soil mechanics explained structural resilience. Laterite clay, when subjected to blast pressure, underwent plastic deformation rather than brittle fracture. Laboratory tests demonstrated the clay absorbed impacts up to 300 pounds per square inch before failing. This absorption dissipated shock waves within 2 meters of detonation point. A 500-pound bomb, standard United States ordnance, created a crater 8 meters deep when detonating on surface. Tunnel ceilings at 10 meters depth experienced negligible structural damage. The mathematics were unambiguous. Depth defeated conventional explosives. Report ESC 7104. Quantified collapse probability. Tunnels less than 3 meters deep collapsed 70% of the time when struck by 500-pound bombs. Tunnels between 3 and 6 meters collapsed 40% of the time. Tunnels exceeding 6 meters collapsed less than 10% of the time, even with direct surface hits. The deepest Viet Cong command bunkers, at 10 to 12 meters, proved virtually immune to anything except bunker-penetrating munitions weighing over 2,000 pounds, weapons rarely deployed due to logistical constraints. Ventilation systems defied detection technology. Bamboo shafts measuring 5 to 6 centimeters in diameter terminated beneath vegetation, inside termite mounds, or within hollow trees. Ground-penetrating radar of the era could not distinguish these narrow shafts from roots, rock fractures, or natural voids. Thermal imaging detected heat signatures from cooking fires, but could not trace ventilation paths through meters of soil. Chemical sensors identified carbon dioxide plumes, but by then fighters had already evacuated compromised sections. The report's most significant conclusion appeared on page 47. No known mechanical device can trace a shaft of less than 3 centimeters diameter through vegetated surface terrain using available field equipment. This limitation rendered systematic tunnel detection impossible. Engineers could locate entrances through ground patrol, informants, or accidental discovery. They could not map networks from above. The subsurface remained opaque to technology designed for surface warfare. Captured Viet Cong engineering manuals describe ventilation design philosophy. Air moves where water cannot. Breath flows through cracks invisible to eyes seeking them. This philosophy proved correct. Ventilation shafts followed tortuous paths through clay, changing diameter and direction to prevent gas weapons from reaching occupied spaces. S-shaped chimney systems for cooking fires extended 20 meters horizontally before reaching surface, dissipating heat, and smoke until detection became impossible. American chemical warfare specialists acknowledged defeat. Tear gas dispersed harmlessly. Smoke grenades filled only local sections. The tunnels breathed while defying suffocation. The expectation had been that technological superiority guaranteed detection and destruction. The reality was that physics favored the defenders. Geology absorbed explosions. Biology required only minimal ventilation. And human ingenuity designed systems exploiting both factors to create infrastructure immune to industrial-age warfare. Report ESC 7104 concluded with a recommendation. Ground clearance operations offer the only reliable method for tunnel neutralization. All other approaches demonstrate insufficient effectiveness. The recommendation acknowledged what Viet Cong engineers had known for decades. Technology favored the industrial power, yet clay and human hands held the advantage underground. In the contest between machines worth millions and shovels worth nothing, the shovels prevailed. Macy v. Withdrawal. Planning documents, 1972. Statistical summaries listing 121 kilometers of tunnels destroyed, 56 kilometers mapped with remainder marked unverified, acknowledging incomplete understanding even after years of intensive operations. Saigon, 1972. In a Massey v. office preparing withdrawal plans, data sheets listed tunnel clearance statistics: 121 kilometers destroyed, 56 kilometers mapped, remainder classified as unverified. These numbers represented 7 years of tunnel warfare. They demonstrated the gap between expectation and achievement. American forces had deployed extensive resources against the tunnel network. Tunnel rat teams, engineering battalions, chemical warfare units, and strategic bombing all targeted the subterranean infrastructure. Results remained inconclusive. Sections destroyed during Operation Cedar Falls in 1967 showed renewed activity in 1971. Areas declared cleared harbored active Viet Cong units months later. The tunnels demonstrated regenerative capacity exceeding destruction rate. Civil Operations and Revolutionary Development Support Program, known as CORDS, reported that pacification metrics had statistically improved. Hamlet security increased, population control strengthened, yet physical control of territory remained uncertain. Villages appearing secure by day concealed tunnel entrances by night. The subsurface dimension remained contested regardless of surface control. American withdrawal planning acknowledged this reality. Mapped tunnels represented known threats, but unmapped tunnels represented unknown capacity. 56 kilometers mapped constituted a fraction of estimated total network length. Intelligence assessments suggested 200 to 250 kilometers existed throughout the Kuchai and Iron Triangle regions. Mapping required physical exploration, tunnel rat teams advancing through passages, documenting dimensions, sketching layouts. This process was slow, dangerous, and incomplete. Viet Cong defenders collapsed sections behind American clearance teams, redug collapsed areas after American forces withdrew, and constructed new passages parallel to destroyed ones. The network remained dynamic, adapting faster than mapping could document. The Civil Operations and Revolutionary Development Support Program's statistical improvement masked strategic ambiguity. Pacification measured visible cooperation, villagers attending government meetings, accepting identity cards, reporting Viet Cong presence. These metrics indicated surface compliance. They did not measure subsurface allegiance. Villagers who smiled at American patrols by day might excavate tunnels by night. The visible and invisible wars proceeded simultaneously, measured by incompatible metrics. A MACV intelligence summary from March 1972 noted, "Enemy tunnel infrastructure remains operational despite 7 years intensive countermeasures. Recommend continued clearance operations as long as American forces remain in country." The recommendation came as forces withdrew, responsibility transferred to Army of the Republic of Vietnam units with fewer resources, less specialized training, and declining morale. Tunnel clearance effectively ended with American departure. The expectation had been that United States withdrawal would coincide with victory over insurgent infrastructure. The reality was that control of the subterranean realm remained unresolved. Every kilometer collapsed left memory in those who dug it. They possessed knowledge of layouts, dimensions, and locations. They retained capacity to excavate again. Maps documented physical structures. They could not document knowledge, will, or labor potential. And those intangible resources outlasted concrete and steel. For every kilometer destroyed, another remained in memory. The tunnels existed in two forms: physical passages that could be collapsed, and knowledge systems that could not. American forces addressed the physical, they never addressed the knowledge. When withdrawal came, both remained. One damaged but repairable, the other intact and transferable. The underground war ended not with victory but with departure. The dimension beneath remained contested, its outcome deferred to forces no longer present to witness resolution. Vietnamese Ministry of Defense Tunnel Survey Maps, 1975-1980. Comprehensive post-war assessment documenting approximately 200 kilometers of usable tunnels, establishing basis for historical preservation and military study. Cu Chi District, 1975-1980. Survey teams from the Vietnamese Ministry of Defense measured remaining tunnel segments following war's end. Results quantified what 7 years of American bombing could not eliminate: roughly 200 kilometers of usable. Tunnels remained throughout the Kuchai and Iron Triangle regions. Some sections had collapsed through flooding, structural failure, or delayed action ordnance. Others remained operational, requiring only clearing of debris and repair of ventilation. The surveys revealed construction sophistication invisible during wartime. 3-tier systems maintained integrity across kilometers. Ventilation networks still functioned despite surface devastation. Command bunkers at 10 to 12 meters depth showed minimal damage even in heavily bombed areas. The laterite clay's structural properties had preserved what concrete might not have survived. Geology had protected engineering, and both had outlasted industrial firepower. Annual soil erosion placed volume loss at 2 to 3% per year in unmaintained sections. This gradual deterioration threatened historical evidence. In 1986, Decree 45 HGBT designated Kyu Chi a protected heritage site. The decision recognized military significance and educational value. What had been battlefield became classroom. What had been survival infrastructure became historical monument. Preservation efforts focused on representative sections. Engineers reinforced key passages with concrete to prevent collapse while maintaining original dimensions. Authentic artifacts, cooking equipment, medical supplies, weapons manufacturing tools returned to original locations for display. Lighting and ventilation installed for visitor safety remained unobtrusive. The goal: demonstrate wartime conditions without endangering modern visitors. Former tunnel fighters served as guides through restored sections. They demonstrated trapdoor concealment techniques, explained booby trap construction, and described daily life underground. Their presence added authenticity no museum placard could match. Visitors entered through original entrances, navigated passages matching wartime dimensions, and emerged understanding what written descriptions could not convey. The tunnels were claustrophobic, dark, humid, and utterly inhospitable by conventional standards. That anyone lived in them for weeks or months demonstrated endurance beyond normal comprehension. Replicated command rooms showed communication equipment, map tables and sleeping quarters. Armories displayed weapons manufactured underground, rifles repaired from captured American pieces, grenades constructed from scavenged materials, booby traps assembled from sharpened bamboo and salvaged explosives. Medical facilities exhibited surgical tools fashioned from bicycle spokes and water pump components. Every artifact testified to resourcefulness born from necessity. Educational programs emphasized engineering and logistics over combat. School groups learned excavation techniques: 3 man-hours per meter, 5 kilograms of soil per meter, laterite clay providing natural support. Mathematics classes calculated volumes. A 10-kilometer tunnel required 40,000 man-hours, equivalent to 500 workers for 1 week or 50 workers for 10 weeks. Physics lessons explained blast absorption, air circulation, and structural load distribution. The tunnels became teaching tools demonstrating that engineering principles applied regardless of technology level. The expectation had been that tunnels would be forgotten after war ended. The reality proved different. They became preserved memory, teaching ground, and testament to human adaptation under pressure. Visitors from former enemy nations walked passages once fought over. Veterans returned, sometimes meeting former adversaries in tunnels, where both once sought to kill each other. Memory replaced conflict. Understanding replaced enmity. And the tunnels, which once symbolized division, became bridges between former enemies, seeking reconciliation through shared history. Vietnam People's Army Archival Center files, post-1986, official military historical assessment crediting the Kyu Chi tunnel system with sustaining southern operations for over 10 years under maximum aerial pressure, validating subterranean strategy as effective counter to industrial military superiority. Hanoi, post-1986 evaluation. The Vietnam People's Army Archival Center maintained files documenting the Kyu Chi tunnel system's strategic impact. Official assessments credited the network with sustaining southern operations for over 10 years under maximum aerial pressure from the world's most powerful military. The conclusion: adaptation could outlast firepower. United States records acknowledge approximately 45,000 tons of ordnance expended in the Kyu Chi sector alone. This tonnage exceeded total American bombing of Germany during World War II, concentrated on an area smaller than metropolitan Washington. Yet the network survived, functioned, and expanded. The disparity between destruction attempted and destruction achieved illustrated fundamental limits of conventional firepower against subterranean infrastructure protected by geology. The tunnels proved that mobility and concealment could counter industrial superiority. American forces possessed helicopters, artillery, jet aircraft, and unlimited ammunition. Viet Cong forces possessed shovels, baskets, and discipline. The contest between technology and determination resolved in favor of determination. Industrial capacity produced abundant weapons. It could not produce abundant will, and will sustained excavation when firepower would have ceased. Strategic analysis identified dimensional control as key concept. Traditional warfare emphasized territorial control, occupying ground, holding positions, denying space to enemies. The tunnels introduced vertical dimension. Forces could lose surface territory while retaining subsurface presence. They could evacuate above ground while remaining below. This dimensional flexibility neutralized conventional tactics predicated on territorial control. Armies won surface battles while losing subsurface wars, and subsurface presence enabled surface operations through surprise emergence, rapid strike, and disappearance before counterattack. Australian advisor Lieutenant Colonel A. Baker remarked in 1970, "They dug with their hands and defied machines worth millions." The observation captured the essential paradox. One B-52 bomber cost $40 million in 1970 dollars, equivalent to $500 million in contemporary currency. Its payload destroyed surface structures effectively, yet tunnels 3 meters below surface survived. The ratio between investment and effect favored defenders. Every bomb that failed to collapse tunnels proved that superior wealth could not guarantee military outcome when geology favored the poor. The tunnel system demonstrated that adaptation outlasts firepower. Industrial economies produce weapons faster than agrarian economies. Yet agrarian populations possessing time, labor, and favorable geology can create infrastructure immune to those weapons. The contest becomes attrition between production and endurance. Industrial powers must sustain vast supply chains, transport networks, and technological maintenance. Underground defenders need only dig and wait. Time favors those who require less, and tunnels required almost nothing except human labor, the one resource agrarian societies possessed in abundance. Historical significance extends beyond Vietnam. The Cu Chi tunnels validated subterranean warfare as legitimate strategy against technologically superior opponents. Subsequent conflicts demonstrated similar principles. Tunnels appeared in Gaza, Afghanistan, Korea. Each case showed that defenders willing to excavate gained advantages no surface fortification could provide. The lesson from Cu Chi: when firepower dominates above, survival lies below. When conventional warfare favors the strong, unconventional warfare favors the patient. By war's end, the tunnels stood as quantitative proof that adaptation outlasts firepower. They demonstrated that wealth does not guarantee victory, that technology cannot compensate for geography, and that determination can outlast destruction when combined with engineering, even primitive engineering done with hand tools and time. The expectation was that conventional war would decide outcomes. The reality was that adaptation, logistics, and subterranean planning did. The machines were louder, the shovels were quieter, the shovels prevailed. If you value fact-based military history and archival analysis, consider supporting the channel so we can continue documenting the hidden mechanisms of modern warfare.